Hey there, this is Tom with the Diogenes Lamp podcast. I appreciate you listening in, and most importantly, I hope you enjoy what you hear. Before we start with today's episode, I'm going to ask you for a small favor. Believe it or not, history podcasts, especially in their early stages, tend not to be cash cows. Shocker, I know. I too was blindsided by this news. Now, I didn't go into this for the money. I think that much is obvious. But unfortunately, books, research materials, and equipment aren't free. Please, go to patreon.com/Diogenes Lamp Podcast, and for less than the price of a coffee once a month, you can become a member and get access to bonus episodes, recommended reading lists and documentaries, shout-outs, and anything else we'll offer in the future as this project grows. If you are especially broke, hey, I get it, but please, make sure to give us a 5-star review when you listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and subscribe to the pod on your preferred podcast listening medium. Your support is appreciated, and more importantly, it is needed in order to keep this operation going. On that note, I hope you have a great day, and now back to the show. Hey everyone, for today's episode I was able to bring onto the pod Konstantinos Kolokotronis. Konstantinos is an independent journalist and researcher who focuses on geopolitics and contemporary power politics in the Aegean and Eastern Mediterranean, and founder of Polity 21 on Substack, where he writes about Greek foreign policy, defense, and developments in the domestic Greek arms industry. And of course, as you guys I'm sure gathered already, we had him on for episode 7 of the guest speaker series, the episode titled Zourafa Isle, the Imia of the North Aegean. The focus of today's episode was primarily on an article he wrote titled Turkey's Blue Homeland Returns to Libya, Part 1, which he published on Substack on August 26th. The article drills down on a lot of stuff, but its primary focus is, of course, on the maritime delineation agreement designating an exclusive economic zone between Turkey and Libya, a designation that runs contrary to international law, of course. This was a deal that has been in the works since 2019 or so it's not exactly new, but we talk about why it's back in the spotlight and why it's important to Greek national security, gas developments in the Eastern Mediterranean, and of course we revisit the Blue Homeland doctrine. Aside from what Libya and Turkey are up to, we also talked about Greece's developing domestic drone industry, and briefly about the recent takeover of the Greek Elvo company by the Israeli SK Group. This conversation was recorded on September 7th, so please wait till the very end and I'll give us a short rundown of some important developments on the situation that occurred immediately after our recording. I think it's safe to say that in the East Med, things do not run on Greek time, if you know what I mean. Enjoy the conversation, everyone, and please take care. All right, so let's get into this article you wrote, Konstantina. Turkey's, quote, Blue Homeland returns to Libya. This is in reference to more recent developments that are happening. The thing with the issue between imaginary maps and whatnot drawn on the ocean between Libya and Turkey has been going on for a while now. But given recent developments, specifically about... Anyways, well, let's talk about cover some bigger points that kind of will provide some context. We all know about this big energy connector that's supposed to go from Israel, Cyprus to Greece. Large natural gas reserves found in the exclusive economic zones of Cyprus, Israel, Greece, Egypt, and the Eastern Mediterranean in general. We have the ongoing war in Ukraine, European dependence on Russian gas, and the need to diversify that for obvious reasons. And of course, we have Libya, who's split effectively in 2 regions. This part confused me a little bit. Could you maybe drill down on us for a little bit? I think you could say it better than I can if you could.
Yeah, so basically Libya has de facto two governments. Yeah, one is based in Tripoli, the Government of National Unity, used to be called the Government of National Accord back in 2019, but 2020. And then we have the Libyan National Army, which is based in Benghazi, that is Eastern Libya, the so-called Cuenca region. So this is the area of Libya which faces Crete, right, to the north. But basically, they've been fighting a civil war. It climaxed in 2019, 2020, and that's when Turkey intervened and practically saved the Tripoli-based government, secured its political survival by intervening. They did so remotely. They used drones, Syrian mercenaries, and they fought off Haftar's forces, General Haftar's forces. He's the leader of the LNA, the Libyan National Army. So that's when this special relationship begins between Turkey intervening into the internal affairs of Libya and trying to transform, particularly the Tripoli-based government, into its proxy in the region, in the broader Eastern Mediterranean region. Yeah.
It's interesting because now today, the most recent development, which kind of I think prompted you to write the piece and thus the article, Blue Homeland returns to Libya, is because recent developments have Turkish intelligence chief Kalin meeting Libyan commander Haftar in Benghazi just like about 2 weeks ago on August 25th, right? So, I mean, it's a pretty interesting development. And just like you were saying, it makes it all the more interesting given, once upon a time, it was the other way around where Turkey was providing all that support and everything to the other Libyan government.
Turkey traditionally did not have good ties with the LNA. I mean, they're the faction that was fighting against the Tripoli-based government. They're the faction that they fought via proxy as well back in 2019, 2020. And, if you remember back then in 2020, Haftar had also visited Athens at some point to seek support. He was also supported by the UAE, Egypt, France.
So even though he wasn't internationally recognized, he was still getting support from...
No, he was not internationally recognized. Yeah, so only the Tripoli, only the GNA or the GNU, the government in Tripoli, that's internationally recognized one by the UN, the US, and so forth. But no, I mean, it's power politics, right? It's about who better serves your own interests. It's not necessarily about international recognition and legitimacy. So even though they had this very adversary relationship, I guess gradually after the waning down of the civil war, after this reconciliation process following Turkey's intervention and building, I guess, some kind of roadmap to hold national elections at some point in Libya, this is when Turkey, I guess, leveraged its presence in the region, particularly in Tripoli, and tried to extend it eastwards as well, to gain some influence with the Benghazi-based government.
So let's talk about this map, right? The infamous Turkey-Libya map. As of now, to my understanding, it's just the Haftar government that has signed on to this, or have both governments signed on to this?
That's a very good question, because the Turkey-Libya memorandum was signed by Tripoli and Ankara. Yeah, so it was only those two factions, the Republic of Turkey and the Tripoli faction, the internationally recognized government in any case. So they signed in 2019, but back then Haftar was fiercely opposed to that kind of deal. Right? I mean, he perceived it as a new imperialist, neo-colonialist, if you will, outreach.
Selling out to the Turks.
Basically, in very simple words. But now he seems to be coming around to sign the deal himself, right? So the LNA, the Libyan National Army, also controls the House of Representatives, which is based in the city of Tobruk, another city in the LNA-controlled half of Libya, in eastern Libya, Cuenca. And there have been multiple reports, particularly these past few months, which allege that the House of Representatives is going to sign the agreement pretty soon. We haven't seen anything yet, but I guess we can assume that there are a lot of back-end negotiations maybe, with both Turkey, and perhaps that was the reason behind the Kalin's visit. Being the head of intelligence service of Turkey, he visited, Tripoli to consult directly with Haftar and bargain on the merits of the deal. And also, I have to assume that there are negotiations with Greece as well, because they're also very interested in what's going to happen, because it's their own maritime zone that's up for grabs after all, right? Because effectively, the Turkey-Libya memorandum partitions a large part of the Greek maritime zone between Libya and Turkey, right?
Right. I mean, if you look at the map, we've called this, just talking between ourselves, a Frankenstein map before and whatnot, and
yeah, exactly.
It looks like one, and if you don't have to know much about international law to see this map and see how it's problematic. I mean, it butts right up against Crete and Rhodes and Carpathos and Kassos and whatnot. It's very easy to look at this map and say, well, that's just so ridiculous. There's no way nothing can come of this, obviously. But why should we take this seriously? Why should we treat it as, something to treat as a threat and not just write it off, right?
Yeah, so a lot of, I guess, Greek commentators or government spokespersons, they would say that it is effectively written off because it's contrary to international law, therefore it's illegal. It can have no binding effect on any governments or any states. I mean, the EU does not recognize it, the US does not recognize it, and so forth. The reality on the ground, however, is very different from that. Because if Turkey has the will, the political will, and the material resources and wherewithal altogether to be able to enforce this illegal map, then, the only thing stopping it would be Greek resistance, right? Resistance on the ground, somehow. I'm not talking, obviously, about some war scenario, although it can lead to that. But it's all about it's all about military force, hard power, which is backing diplomacy in any case, and international law as an extension. Because international law without hard power does not have any effect. If you cannot enforce it, then it's good for nothing. And I think that applies in this case.
There are no police to call in international law, is what you're saying.
Yes, precisely.
Right. And the other thing, too, and you mentioned this in your article, is that, Turkey is building up a very, it appears to be anyways, really strong and productive domestic naval industry to build, what you call it, what is it, a blue water fleet, I believe. The ability to, really operate throughout the Mediterranean.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, that's the case. So it's not so much about navigating the Aegean Sea, which is a very, highly dispersed archipelago where Greece has the advantage by, naturally, obviously, controlling all of these islands, having coastal batteries, a very agile, fast-moving navy and coast guard. So yeah, by blue water navy, that's what we mean, basically, the ability to navigate the high seas, go beyond your coastal littoral waters. And in this case, that will be the Eastern Mediterranean. All of these waters between Rhodes, Carpathos, Kassos, Crete, and Cyprus, Castellorizo, right in the middle as well,
right.
and beyond it as well. Yeah, I think Blue Homeland is only the beginning. Blue Homeland is only the base. It's Turkey trying to extend sovereignty using the Anatolian Peninsula as a springboard, and then extending sovereignty into its near littoral sea. And then gradually, after it has built all this influence, it has become something close to regional hegemon, maybe, in the Eastern Mediterranean, Aegean and the Eastern Mediterranean basin. Then I think it will seek probably to expand its influence in the Red Sea and beyond, as east as the Indian Ocean, maybe.
Wow. It is interesting, right? Because we've talked about in our previous episode, what's this guy's name? Jihad Yachi, the retired admiral, and he has a quote that you talk about in your article where he talks about the principle of domination of land over sea, And I mean, this doesn't really embody that, right? Treating
Yeah,
Turkey
yeah,
and,
exactly. Because
you know,
Turkey has traditionally been a land-centric power. Yeah, it was all about the army, not so much about the navy. They don't have a very long tradition of seamanship. I mean, there are quite a lot notable, I guess, a lot of notable Ottoman admirals that perhaps we can talk of in a different podcast.
right.
A lot of those have been of Greek descent. That's not that's a reality, right? I mean, if you look, I mean, one of them, I think,
Barbarossa.
Barbaros, yeah, a lot of them have been born in
Hmm.
Greek islands like Lesbos. Turkish father, Greek mother. That's how it went for quite a few of those. But no, I mean, if you completely forget about that, it's all about what you said, domination of land over the sea. So the blue homeland is trying to treat the near littoral sea, Turkey's closest waters, like the Aegean archipelago, a large part of the Eastern Mediterranean basin, as blue national soil. Yeah, as if it's land almost. To try to exert a near sovereign control, which is why they're not allowing, for example, Greece and Cyprus to lay this cable. I mean, that would be permitted under the national law because it's the high sea. Nobody effectively owns it. You can exert
Right.
sovereign rights, but you don't exert sovereignty. But this is where Turkey effectively disagrees and says, oh, actually, no. I mean, I want to have exclusive sovereign rights and the near sovereign control over whatever is happening in this wide area.
Right. In a nutshell, it's either international law or blue homeland, but these two cannot coexist with each other. They're practically exclusive of each other.
No, yeah, absolutely. They're mutually exclusive. Yeah, I mean, you have to reject basic tenets of international law
Right.
if you're a believer in the
The
blue homeland.
existence of one eliminates the existence of the other. You can't say, because otherwise it's going to contradict your claim, right? Do you believe in this international law or do you not? Totally get it. Yeah.
It's a very heavy topic, I think.
Yeah, it is a very complicated topic with a lot of moving parts, as many of these things tend to be, but
Mhm.
it's just interesting. There seems to be a lot at stake as well, and I think that's what's driving these kinds of this situation. Obviously, I mean, there was always issues within the Mediterranean, not the Mediterranean, within the Aegean, but also we've known about gas deposits and oil deposits, and there's been rumors of it for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Since the 80s, even. I mean, and you can point to the 80s, with the Sysmec incident and whatnot. So, I mean, it's not like this is anything extremely new, but wow. Let me talk about something else that you point out in your article that I think will really help us understand the bigger picture here in terms of the Eastern Mediterranean. You say, quote, Libya is ideally positioned to become a forward defense fortress and outpost that cuts off Greek access to the East Med basin across the line drawn by the 2019 memorandum while diverting the Greek defense front down south. Are you talking about the ability for Greece to exert power literally east towards Cyprus? Like literally cutting that off?
Partially, yes. So I think, as we also talked about before, Aegean. That's the stronger, I guess, outpost, the stronger fortress of Greek defenses. Yeah, the strongest area of Greek defense. Um, so it wouldn't be very smart, I guess, for Turkey and rational to try to begin manifesting its blue homeland aspirations directly in the Aegean Sea, because that's where Greece has this asymmetric advantage thanks to these islands, which they're also liability, as you can see with the Imia crisis, right? When you partially occupy an island so small like Imia, that's when Greece is forced to face the dilemma: do I respond militarily or not? Yeah. But in a large-scale confrontation within the Aegean archipelago or at the edges of it, that's when Greece can have a very significant military advantage, I think, due to the archipelagic dispersion and coastal batteries, very agile, fast-moving Hellenic Navy, Coast Guard, and so forth. The Eastern Mediterranean is a different animal, right? So when you move to Libya, as south as Libya, I think what Turkey is trying to do is to divert the center of gravity of Greek defense, from the Aegean to an area where they do not have this kind of advantage. Yeah. So I think the Turkey-Libya memorandum illustrates this very well, We're talking about the high seas, right? Open high sea. Turkey is also trying to build its blue water navy, large vessels, ideally suited for sailing, policing these waters, trying to enforce UNCLOS claims. And that's effectively when the Hellenic Navy, the Greek Navy, will be forced to come out of the relative safety that the Aegean Sea can provide and come face Turkish Navy out in the open. And that's when presumably the Turkish Navy will have some kind of advantage. And it's all about also confusing and dislocating Greek defenses. Because if you have to face a crisis that starts from the Aegean all the way down to Libya, right, south of Crete, then where the hell are you gonna focus first, right? I mean, you have to disperse your defenses and try to face the adversary across different fronts.
Jeez.
And after I don't know, some kind of long-term attrition, they're gonna find your weakest point, and they're gonna strike with full force against it. That's when your entire front will collapse. I mean, this is all theoretical, right? I'm not saying this will happen, but
striking on a large front, a very wide front, and wow,
which is already pretty wide. I mean, if you think that it starts from as north as Evros, Thrace, yeah,
right,
the river and the land border there, and as southeast as Castellorizo, right, the Greek island east of Rhodes, in between Rhodes and Cyprus, it's already wide enough as it is. But when Libya comes into play, and when you have Turkish warships docking there and using air force bases outside of Tripoli, that's when it's becoming ever more expansive. The whole front is expanding.
Then you throw in Cyprus as well.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah. Then it becomes a more difficult equation to solve, right? Because half of the side, Turkey has enormous conventional, obviously, military supremacy on the island, so they can always, hold Cyprus hostage to whatever happens in relation to whatever happens in the Aegean or the East Med. Right, a hot incident near war scenario in the Aegean, and that's when Turkey mobilizes her troops in Cyprus and they push forward the Green Line, and then they call for negotiations and whatnot and concessions in both the Aegean Sea, Eastern Mediterranean, and Cyprus. Presuming, of course, that they have the upper hand in Cyprus, which theoretically they have, but you never know.
Yeah, things, the fog of war, right? War is extremely unpredictable, and who knows? But these are all really very good points that I think get overlooked just when you're looking at it at surface level and you're saying, oh, well, there's this going on in Libya, and you kind of narrow it down just into the context of natural gas development, right? I mean, after all, that's what seems to be the main highlight point of all this stuff is, this has to do with natural gas development. But as you point out, there's way bigger forces at play, and there's way other things that are behind the scenes and that are connected to this.
Yeah, the energy aspect is maybe only the surface to all of this. It's a pretext, right? It's important in itself, obviously, to be able to tap into this vast oil and natural gas reserves and boost your economy. But it's all about strategic control, I think, of the Aegean Sea. This is where it all begins. Back in 1973, 1974, Cyprus, obviously, as well, in the Eastern Mediterranean. But this is what's smart, I guess, about the Turkish approach. Because as far as the Aegean is concerned right now, its approach is quite indirect. I mean, it claims the Aegean, about half of the Aegean Sea, right? The militarization of these Aegean islands, they're still standing. They're still there. They're not going anywhere. But kinetic activity, it mostly takes place now at the flanks of Greek defense, which is
Cyprus, Libya,
Turkey-Libya memorandum, east of Rhodes, Carpathos, Crete, this whole wide area.
Good point. It's no longer just Imia. Sorry to talk over you. It's no longer penetrating into the Aegean like it used to be, like in Imia, right in the middle of the Dodecanese and places like that.
No, it still very much is. That's definitely still on the agenda. But I think they're just trying to do it very slowly, right? They're trying to grind down with defenses, and thus far they've also been employing this indirect approach, right? Where they establish this forward defense area in Libya. Because their imagination, that's what it is, right? It's about defending the blue homeland. It's not expansion or aggression or revisionism. which, okay, objectively it is, but in the Turkish imagination, in the eyes of Turkish policymakers, it's all about securing the future, the safety, the security of the Republic of Turkey, beginning at the Anatolian homeland and all the way to Libya.
You sometimes really wish Greece had neighbors like Portugal and Sweden, of course, but that's not the reality. But it also just points to how... What was that?
Luxembourg.
Yeah, Luxembourg, right. Ideally. But it really also just points to how important it is for Greece to, unfortunately, have, a very strong military. I mean, deterrence ultimately seems to be the only path forward and the only thing that Turkey responds to, unfortunately. I mean, we'll see. And, the international community playing a role in empowering Greece and, deterring Turkey from doing this as well. Speaking of deterrence, I think that actually acts as a great segue into another article you wrote titled Towards the Dronification of Greek Sea Power, the Blue Whale AUV. And AUV, of course, stands for Autonomous Underwater Vehicle. You wrote this back in May of 2025. The Israel Aerospace Industries and the Hellenic Aerospace Industry signed a strategic memorandum of understanding to pretty much create this AUV, this autonomous underwater vehicle, the Blue Whale, it's titled. Do you want to talk a bit about this partnership and just what the Blue Whale is in a nutshell, and why the potential is for something, this Blue Whale?
So yeah, the Blue Whale is an autonomous submarine, in very simple terms, a drone, underwater drone. So still in development, obviously, between Greece and Israel. It has also been taken into consideration for procurement projects by other countries, such as Germany, I believe. I think that might also be mentioned in the article. The German Navy has done some trials in the Baltic Sea, where they have tested the Israeli product, the submarine, to see how it fares. I think its advantages are quite obvious in the case of Greece. Yeah, particularly in regards to the area we're talking about before, the straits in the southeastern Aegean Sea, stretching from Crete to Kassos, Carpathos, Rhodes, so forth. Because this is a platform that can stay underwater for a long period of time. It can monitor any type of activity, and it's multi-purpose. It can be used presumably against surface targets, as well as anti-submarine warfare. Right? Detect the movement of other submarines moving through the water. Yeah. So I think particularly, with regards to that area, it's a very cost-effective way to police the high seas, because...
No, what you're saying makes sense. Just from your article, 2,000 hours of driving autonomy, intelligence gathering. You mentioned the other applications as well. Yeah, you don't have to be a genius to understand why this is so important. Yeah, so that's what the Blue Whale is. Makes sense. Thank you for kind of spelling it out. I know the name can be a bit of, dronification, like you said in the article, it's gone beyond just sea power as well. The Greek drone industry has really taken off. Recently, there was a tweet. This is getting a little off the side of your article, so, we're kind of riffing here a little bit. But, I don't know if you saw a tweet by Dr. Plakoudas, Spiridon Plakoudas.
Oh, yeah.
Greek arms industry exports surpassed $1 billion for the first time in history. Pretty big milestone. Obviously, it's still a long ways to go, especially when compared to an industry like Turkey. But, all in all, sea power, air power, whatever the case, would you say drones are really picking up in the Greek military in general? In other words, is Greece catching up, I should say, is the better question to, Turkey per se, in terms of drone industry and whatnot and application?
Well, in absolute terms, I think they're trying to pick up the pace. They're doing so very slowly. And now, relatively speaking, in relation to Turkey, no, I think Greece is unfortunately
still far behind.
Light years behind. But there is quite a lot of potential. As you mentioned, the exports are doing relatively well. And that's a problem, that foreign companies and militaries are buying more Greek drones than the Greek army is, which is concerning. And somebody should look into that. Why is this happening? Basically, why is the Greek military not buying homemade products, to put it simply, and always going for the foreign options? So I mean, a lot of considerations that go into that. So if a foreign product is battle tested, then in that case that will be prioritized maybe over a Greek product, which, however impressive it might sound and whatever its capabilities might be, it hasn't been tested in real combat conditions. That was not the case, of course, with the anti-drone system that was recently installed in some Meko frigates of the Hellenic Navy. So this was actually produced by the Hellenic aerospace industry, EAV, yep, and it was tested against Houthi drones in the Black Sea some time ago. So that is a very good case, I guess, a very good example of a Greek product, indigenously made, developed, produced, that has also been tested in real-world conditions. And I think it points the way towards future procurements from Greek companies. There have been some other cases. Maybe the Greek army, I think, has bought a few, quadcopter drones. They use them mostly thus far for observation and, calculating artillery distances, targeting purposes for the army. They have been displayed in a few exercises in northern Greece, Thrace, NATO exercises. These are a few, I think, early examples. But when the article speaks, I guess, of the dronification of Greek sea power, I guess what I try to do there is to highlight the concerns that exist about manpower shortages in the Hellenic Navy. It's all across the board. It's the Greek army, Greek air force, but particularly the Hellenic Navy, I think. Given that half of Greece is maritime, yeah. I mean, the Aegean Islands, the Greece is made up of two parts, right? The continental part, the peninsula, and the maritime one, the Aegean. So you cannot preserve this, vital line of defense, the strategic depth, without having a big enough navy, obviously, for deterrence but also, Coast Guard, for example, right? For policing the exclusive economic zone, enforcing maritime rights, ensuring free navigation, and so forth. So I guess by trying to shift the burden a little bit towards, with the help of drones, with the help of unmanned platforms like the Blue Whale, which can, police critical geostrategic choke points like straits, the straits of the Southeastern Aegean, or cables. I mean, if the cable eventually becomes a reality between Greece, Cyprus, and Israel, then the Blue Whale, I think, will be an ideal platform to secure its smooth operation and deter any acts of sabotage, maybe, which we have already seen in different domains, right? Different realms, like the Baltic Sea, for example.
Right, up in Ukraine, with that pipeline and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, in other words, kind of like a force multiplier. Like we know Greece is outnumbered, obviously, by a very quite large margin population-wise. And you said, of course, it goes across the board, not just Navy and military and whatnot, but across the board. So, this is a way to hopefully even the playing field a little bit when it comes to that. Can you talk a bit about why it is important to spend on that when you're buying things, why it's important to purchase from your domestic arms industry, aside from supporting it, it like increases your GDP, right?
Theoretically, it does. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, it's a paradox, isn't it? The fact that you're buying more weapons, from your. I mean, traditionally, Greece has been quite has found itself in a precarious position when it comes to foreign acquisitions. Yeah, large acquisitions, procurements of foreign weaponry, which they haven't been very good for the national debt. But of course, I mean, you can circumvent that problem by investing in your national defense industry, which means that you're going to have some more value, more surplus value.
Gotcha.
When it comes to lower cost of development. I mean, your industrial base is right at home. You don't need to pay somebody else to do the job, which is many miles away. all across the ocean in the case of the US.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, it's all about the infrastructure, the acquired knowledge, the technical expertise, which can also it's also the case of slipping over into different sectors. Yeah. So drone technology, I mean, it's very famously dual-use technology. I mean, it can be used from precision agricultural farming to dropping munitions. Yeah. To
Wow.
military applications. And I think this is what a lot of those companies try to do nowadays. Greek companies like Altus. Altus is a Greek drone company. A lot of the drones have, they champion this dual-use mentality and application. They can be used, for example, by the fire service, the Coast Guard, the military, the Navy, and so forth.
All things that are really important, especially in Greece,
Yeah.
given the fire situation. Yeah. Delian Alliance, also really interesting company. It's doing a lot of interesting things. Already.
Yeah, the alliance has been called the Anduril of Greece. Anduril is a very big, I think, U.S. defense
Oh, no way.
company. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
and I guess there are a few similarities when it comes to the innovative nature and the expendable actual nature of the products. We're talking about a mass production of a highly attritional drone units, right? Like the USV, the unmanned surface vehicle, that the Delian Defense announced a few months ago.
Yeah, and I guess given the attrition we're seeing in Russia, Ukraine, I mean, God forbid anything happens between Greece and Turkey, it'd be better to have attrition through drones than attrition through people, which is, a setting that Greece could not sustain by any means, given the obvious, escalation advantage Turkey has and, the population advantage, for obvious reasons, right? So, yeah, this all kind of hopefully evens the playing field. Before we wind down today, I know we talked about a lot of wide-ranging stuff. As this episode has shown, I'm far from an expert in any of this. I mean, novice level. That's why I had you on to talk to you about this. But I did want to ask your opinion on the most recent development with the whole elbow thing, the elbow industry. If you could just talk about that. I understand there was a takeover. Israeli investors pretty much have seized 100% control of this company, Elbo, ELBO. In Greek, it'd be Elvo, I believe. Can you talk about that a little bit? I mean, I know it's not something that either of these articles are on, but I just figured if there's anyone to talk to about this, if we'd ask you just a general idea or a general analysis on what happened, what Elbo is, what it was, and I don't know, give your 2 cents on it if you're okay, if you're up for it, of course.
Yeah, of course. So Elvo was a Greek vehicle manufacturer. Yeah. Very famously, it has built transportation vehicles for the Greek army. It has also built, I believe, trolleys, buses, civilian, equipment for mass transportation. Some of these they can still be seen actually in the streets of Athens or Thessaloniki. You can see the brand name Elvo in some of these vehicles. The trams, I think, as well in the center of Athens, they were manufactured by Elvo. So they have very extensive infrastructure. I think their vehicle construction factory, their plant, is one of the largest, if not the largest, in the Balkans, in the Balkan Peninsula. So it's a pretty big deal that it was bought 100% now by an Israeli company, SK Group. I mean, before that, a few years ago, a majority of it was again bought by the Israelis, but now we have a wholesale purchase. They got the whole thing, 100% of it. So it raises quite a few concerns when it comes to, Greek national infrastructure, the idea of Greek national infrastructure being owned, the totality of it, by, a foreign power, a foreign nation, whichever that foreign nation might be. I mean, Greece and Israel have a very good relationship. Strategic partners, allies, even the Eastern Mediterranean. They have shared concerns about Turkey. Greece has been quite supportive of Israel, particularly during this time, during the war in Gaza. I mean, they have distanced themselves somehow since then. But nevertheless, I think partially it was a one-way street. Yeah, I mean, Elvo has been suffering for a lot of years. Since the 90s, and particularly, during the financial crisis, obviously, since then, structural problems. That's not profitable organization anymore. And as with everything in the Greek public sector, it was subject to strikes. Generally, it was not running a very tight ship, financially speaking, but also.
What? No way. Impossible. I can't believe to hear this,
For a
Konstantinos.
Greek public
Unbelievable,
company,
really.
But I guess practically speaking, in very simple terms, it was not able to meet the rising demands of the Greek army in particular. Yeah, when it came to vehicle maintenance, production of new vehicles, and so forth. This is not so much a matter, I guess, of the material reality here, because they have the expertise, they have the infrastructure, so they can do what they do very well. I guess it's a matter more of organization, just the public sector overreaching and trying to run the company like it did with so many others in the past, like even the public energy, electricity company, which now again is in private hands. I mean, it's owned by Greeks, but it's also, I guess, a very good example of how privatization can work in some cases, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. In Greece, especially, I think Greece could benefit from that. In America, I come from, the U.S., so I approach it from the opposite end, where too many things, I believe, have become privatized here, and perhaps America's on the other extreme. But in Greece, it seems that they could actually benefit from some privatization, even just from a pragmatic standpoint of just delivering services, right? Something that lacks in Greece sometimes.
But those who complain about its acquisition by Israeli interests, I mean, they have to think. I mean, was there any Greek company which was interested in buying Elvo in the first place?
Good point. Yeah,
I don't think there was. I mean, apparently there wasn't. Yeah.
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 Also, it's just I think it really, what the whole situation really, screams is just another missed opportunity by Greece. Like everyone's been talking about, Greece needs to build their domestic arms industry. We need to keep up with Turkey. And here you have a company that you were just talking about, how it has the infrastructure and it has the capital and the assets and all that. And, it's just completely underperforming and then gets bought up by a foreign company. Israel, aside with everything that can be said about Israel these days, and there's certainly a lot, to say the least, right? But it is a missed opportunity. It just sounds like, and, a lot of potential missed. Like this could have been turned into something that could have, I don't know, maybe possibly could have even done more than just trucks one day and, public transportation.
There are some benefits that can come out of this. I mean, particularly if work actually starts taking place. Yeah, I mean, if production of vehicles starts taking place. I mean, again, we haven't seen that yet. Nothing concrete has been announced quite yet. But for Israel, it's all about, I guess, extending its supply chain into friendly countries like Cyprus or Greece. I mean, a Hamas missile cannot go all the way there, right?
True.
Which means that they can, I guess, sustain their war industry by tapping into friendly nations and helping them as well, obviously. I mean, they're going to be producing, they're going to be making products for the Greek army, Hellenic forces, so forth, but also they're going to reinforce their own supply chain by extending it westwards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, it does make a lot of sense. And I mean, ultimately, again, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about being pragmatic. I mean, Greek-owned or not Greek-owned, if it can supply good quality products at a reasonable price for Greece.
I guess, it's mostly a matter of, it's mostly a matter of principle. I mean, when it comes to, important national infrastructure, particularly, when your defense industry is not that impressive after all. You're just now trying to,
right.
to pull yourself from your bootstraps, as you say. Yeah.
Right.
So I guess it was not very encouraging to see that one of the, very big infrastructure plants was just a wholesale, being purchased by the Israelis. But again, I mean, as you said, it's all about the effect. It's all about the results. At this point, you cannot be too picky when you're at a tight spot like Greece has been the past few years.
Time will tell. Ultimately, with that, I guess we'll see how things play out. Hey, this is Tom again. Hope you guys really enjoyed that conversation. I know I did. Just like I said at the start of this, I do want to give you some relevant updates on the unfolding situation. For starters, there have been reports coming from the Haftar-controlled Libyan government that for now the Libya-Turkey deal will not be ratified. For now. Additionally, on September 11th, the Greek Prime Minister Mitsotakis met with U.S. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum to discuss expanding U.S.-Greece ties, especially in the realm of energy security. This also coincides with the announcement that Chevron would bid on the exploration of 4 offshore hydrocarbon blocks, 2 of those blocks being south of Crete. Lastly, Egypt has ongoing surveys in maritime areas along its western border with Libya, which in practice show a complete rejection of the Libya-Turkey maritime deal. All pretty positive developments for Greece's prospects to energy develop in the Mediterranean, but of course, time will tell. Again, hope you guys enjoyed today's conversation. Please support Konstantinos' work at polity24.substack.com so that he can keep writing and keep providing great analyses on situations such as these and whatnot. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.